All right, here we go. I'm going to get right straight into it. No babbling, unless I do some babbling at the end. I can't think anything off the top of my mind I want to relate to right this moment. So listen to this. This is titled Crazy Events. Hi, Steve. Annie here. I hope you're enjoying your vacation. Warning, this could be a long email. Well, I hope this email gets to you and maybe you'll have time to share it. I'm not a hunter or a camper, but I do like to go on day hikes. I've never heard of Bigfoot until very recent years. Even then, I didn't put much thought on the subject. Sure, I thought they were possible. I've seen and heard crazier things out there. My race/culture is very spiritual, so in a way, I was raised to be more open-minded than the average person. I can't say with a definite yes that I've seen a Bigfoot and never want it. Oh, sorry. I can't say with a definite yes that I've seen a Bigfoot and never wanted to. Events in my past has made me more curious about the topic. So here I am listening and trying to learn more. I'm fairly new on your channel. Less than a year subscriber here, so I'm trying to go back on your playlist to learn more. Before I share my events, I'd like to say I have shared some of it on another channel, hoping for some answers. I won't name the channel because I know you don't like that. Sadly, I don't live near any big national forest, but I did find a decent local area about 10 minutes from home. A solo hike at least 3 to 4 times a week in this 700 acres of mostly wooded land with no hunting allowed. Many times over the years I've felt eyes on me, but I've never felt threatened. So with limited hiking options, this area became one of my favorite spots. One beautiful summer day last year, about halfway into my hike, I stopped to take some pictures of the lake. As I finished up and was putting my phone away, I hear 4 soft, low knocks overhead. I look up, but I didn't see anything, so I turned to continue my hike, and suddenly I hear 2 loud bangs ringing out in the far distance behind me. It made me pause to look back. Seeing nothing, but I could have swore I felt a soft mental nudge as if to say, "Go on." That got me laughing at myself, figuring I was imagining things. I mentally berated myself, then shrugged it off and continued with my hike. That feeling of being watched followed me on the trail, but I didn't feel threatened. Maybe a mild curiosity. When I had less than a mile left, I decided to snack on some homemade jerky I keep in my pack. This is quite normal for me to snack and hike. Very rarely do I stop to sit and eat. As I walked and snacked, I felt an intense curiosity wash over me. After a few minutes of not being able to shake the feeling, I pulled out a large piece, walked over to a tree stump, and placed it in the middle, then continued on. About 3 meters away, the last curve of the trail came up, and as I complete the wide curve, I hear what sounded like a thud. Sorry, you guys. I hear what sounded like a loud female squeal. That surprised me so much I actually jumped. I quickly turned towards the noises, standing and frozen in shock. It sounds like a female and a child's excited samurai chatter. Try as I might, I could not understand what was being said. And after a few seconds, the shock wore off and I ran back to the stump. I don't know what I was expecting, but there was nothing. No one was around that I could see or hear, and the piece of jerky was gone. I hadn't come across anyone within the last few miles, and the path was a straight shot on fairly level forest land. I should have seen someone for at least 50 yards or so, unless they went off trail. Well, not knowing what to make of it, I continued my hike out and left. I do come across small random things at various times in this area, such as finding a clean deer skull sitting on top of a bush about eye level to me. Small childlike bare footprints almost twice my width. Random piles of stones, trees pushed over, leaning teepee style. I did get lost there once. To this day, I still don't know how that was possible. One day I was just doing my usual hike and suddenly didn't recognize the area. The trail was gone. I tried to backtrack, but again, there was no trail to follow. I pulled my phone out, trying to check my location, but my phone was dead. This is weird because I always charge my phone before I do any kind of walking, and I swore it was at almost full when I started. After several failed attempts, I put my phone back in my pocket, and stood frozen, trying not to panic. This was supposed to be an area I've been many, many times, but suddenly I couldn't recognize it. Of course, I was scared. I don't know how long I stood there debating on what to do and trying to calm myself down, when I suddenly saw a tall, big, dark shadow to my right. It was standing on a slope filled with leafless trees and dying weeds, but there was an opening. I could tell the shadow was huge. I think it was slowly swaying side to side. Maybe that's what caught my attention. Something said, "Come." I didn't even second guess it. I just went. I tried to keep the shadow within sight, but it seems to have moved further back as I made my way closer to it. I can still make out part of its outline, but it was disappearing. When I made it to the clearing, I saw it opened onto a familiar path. Standing on the path, I looked all around me for the stranger. The path was a clear, straight shot on both sides, but I did not see anyone. I was very disappointed. I was not able to thank my savior, but quickly made my way out. As I neared my car, I forgot my phone was dead, so I did the usual, pulling it out to stop the app I normally use to track my path. It didn't dawn on me that my phone was supposed to be dead until I sat in my seat about to charge my phone before pulling out. I do these few actions all the time, so it felt second nature to me. When I read my phone battery, it said 76%. So why couldn't I get my phone to turn on earlier? Also, I usually average 7 miles in a little over 2 hours. And this day I managed half that length and was gone for closer to 3 hours. It didn't feel like I was lost that long. Some may call me a stubborn fool, but I still hike these trails to this day, except I now have 2 ankle biters for company. This last event happened in 2022. My daughter, Alina, oldest son, Nikki, his girlfriend, Lily, and I took a trip to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We rented a small, charming cabin on the side of a mountain for a week. The first day, due to the steep and sharp turns, I almost went off-road, scaring me enough to ask the renters if I could park by the lake off the main road. They agreed. We had fun. All was normal until the last night. All week we made it back to the cabin before dark. However, we ended up staying out well after 11 p.m. I forgot how dark it gets outside of the city and didn't recall noticing the moonlight. With no flashlight or weapons, we made do with our phone lights in the 10 to 15 minute walk from the car to the cabin. These kids were less than 6 feet ahead of me. Soon I noticed there was no noise, except for the kids talking softly. We just cleared the last turn of the road when the hairs on my arm started rising. Uneasiness sat in. Suddenly, loud cracking to my right rung out, causing me to slow down, turning my head towards that direction. Obviously, I couldn't see anything. Looking forward to ask if the kids heard it, I realized I was talking to the wind. They were running, and it was nearly to the front door with the porch light on. The darn kids left me, causing me to pick up speed. Nicky made sure the girls were at the door and then turned back for me. As he neared, I saw his eyes glance at me, then shifted behind. With fear on his face, he grabbed and dragged me quickly to the cabin. The girls had the door wide open and waiting on us. Nothing followed us as far as we could tell. As soon as we cleared the door, I started asking why they ran and yelled I started asking why they ran and yelled that I couldn't believe they left me. They apologized, explaining they heard some screaming and crying in the distance ahead. I told them I didn't hear that, but I did hear cracking noises by me. I asked Nicky why he got scared when he came back for me. He said it was just the situation that scared him. Of course, I knew there was more to it. After we all calmed down, the girls left to use the bathrooms. Nicky was about to follow Lily, but I stopped him. As soon as we were alone, I asked him to explain. After hesitating for a minute, he said he thought he saw a large, dark shadow behind me. He couldn't make out what it was, but it looked twice my size. This scared me, thinking a possible bear was behind me, but glad we were all safe inside. As the night wore on and nothing else happened, we convinced ourselves we may have imagined things in the dark. We're all night owls, and with none of us feeling sleepy, we agreed to make the most of the last night. We decided to jump into the hot tub in the downstairs back porch, then make use of the pool table if everyone was still up for it. Eventually, I headed in for a shower. Alina hopped in after I did, while the two lovebirds enjoyed a little alone time. I asked Nikki to turn off the lights when they come back in. The porch was nicely lit with fairy lights. To turn them off and on, we had to turn the round button side to side. There was no timer. After they came in and showered, we started on the pool table. I sat on the daybed to watch as Lily watched from the small table. We both had our backs to the windows and full glass door. At some point, I turned to look out the windows, realizing the lights were on. I asked Nicky, didn't I tell him to turn them off when they came in? He swore he did as he moved to turn them off. Lily confirmed they had turned them off. We said, be big deal. Probably meant no big deal. Nicky turned them off and came back with no problem. 5 minutes later, I looked back and they were back on. Puzzled and confused, we all saw them go off. There's no way they could have turned on by themselves. He went back to turn them off as we all watched, and we tried to continue like nothing happened. Moments later, I looked back, and again they were on. We're freaked out now. We refused to let Nicky go out again, but he did anyway, and this time he pulled out the cord. The lights went off. We decided we were done for the night. Alina and I crawled back into bed, scared, but trying our best to ignore the feeling. Nicky and Lily headed up. I can hear them walking around. I knew Nicky was doing his nightly walk around to make sure the cabin was secure. As he headed to bed, suddenly a loud bang shook the cabin. We all froze, terrified for a minute or two. Then Nicky and Lily came running down, asking if that was us. Nope, it sure wasn't. Then, as if to confirm this, bang! There goes another smack. We all hopped into bed, huddling under the covers, praying nothing else happens. Scared, shocked, and in disbelief. It was going on 5 a.m. last I checked. I felt an energy in the air. I couldn't quite make out what it was. I felt frustration was part of it, but didn't know why. We were on edge, but nothing else happened. None of us slept. We were all too tense, afraid of the possibilities. Soon dawn approached, and we thought all was clear. Suddenly, the loudest bang sounded, making us jump. I was surprised the windows didn't break. I think Nicky had had enough. He jumped out of bed, fear giving way to anger. Lily screamed what the hell he was doing and to come back. He made his way to the windows. I followed, telling the girls to stay. We checked all the windows together, seeing nothing. I realized the energy I was feeling was gone, realizing it disappeared soon after that last hit. We stayed cautious, and at full light, we threw everything together. Nicky escorted me to the car, and we zoomed up the path with the car, shoved everything in, and off we went. The kids soon fell asleep, exhaustion finally kicking in. I drove for as long as I thought it was safely possible, but eventually pulled into a Walmart parking lot to sleep. We talked about the experience once. None of us could agree on what it could be. The bottom porch is at least a 20-foot drop down the steep slope with no way to access the porch outside of the cabin. The kids prefer not to talk about this event, and I've not pushed it. I think this email's long enough for now, so I'll end it here. Take care and be safe out there. There you go. End of story and experience. I don't know what everybody else is thinking, but you know what? I mean, who knows? I don't know. You know, there's the portal thing is a real thing. You know, it's a lot of people probably don't want to accept that it's a real thing, but sadly it's true. It's a real thing. So, did this person step into one by accident and get called back? Is that what happens to people? Because how many times have people emailed in and said they don't recognize nothing? They got lost, turned around, nothing looks similar. Nothing works, phone doesn't work, nothing looks similar, energy's off. The whole package deal, right? I know a lot of people now who have lost all the power in all their devices, and the power came back on again when the energy in the air felt neutral and normal again. So what do you guys think going on? Right? What's going on? All right, here comes another one. I appreciate you emailing that in. And if you've learned anything else since and you want to share it, this is the right place to do it. If you want to get the knowledge shared with as many people as possible, all right? Here we go. This is titled 2 New Mexico Elk Hunters Number 2. Hello, Steve. Adam Seiss from Albuquerque, New Mexico. You previously read our encounter back in May of 2022, where my wife and I were put into the club of no return after we heard a Sabe or a Sabes speaking like a samurai warrior in the Jemez Mountains on my elk hunt. I told you I'd speak to some individuals I know who live and grew up in the Jemez Mountains. I have a few stories for you. My buddy Chris is a Navajo Native American. He grew up in Albuquerque all his life. While in high school back in the 90s, he went up to Jemez. It's spelled Jemez, but it's pronounced Jemez. So why didn't they spell it Jemez? Just kidding. Anyway, he went up to Jemez on a weekend trip with 3 of his friends. When they were looking for a good camping spot, all the good spots were taken by the river. They ended up driving off the beaten path and made their own road to the river. They had a great day fishing, swimming in the river, and drinking lots of beer. Well, about sunset, everyone was now tired, coming down from all the beer and the hot sun. 3 of them were laying in the bed of the truck when the sound started. It sounded like 2 boulders being smacked together 3 in a row. Then about another minute would go by, and the smacking would happen again. The 3 guys behind the truck assumed it was the 4th friend was making all the noise. So they yelled out to him to cut it out. What are you doing making all the noise? Suddenly the 4th friend said from the front seat of the truck, what are you yelling at? I'm right here in the cab of the truck laying down. Well, at this point, everyone became concerned with what was making the noise. They started shining flashlights all around and they couldn't see anything. The cracking became louder and now in different locations. Panic set in and everyone started throwing all the camping equipment in the back of the truck. My buddy Chris went to grab his wet clothes from a hanging branch, and the owner of the truck already had the truck started and was trying to get up the hill. Chris abandoned his wet clothes, ran after the truck, and jumped into the back bed of the truck, cutting open his arm on a camp stove. Man, that sucks. Who pins the gas when their buddy's not in the truck? The truck had a hard time climbing the riverbank in 2-wheel drive. Finally, when they topped the hill and were on the main dirt road, they punched it and had to immediately slam on the brakes because of a big buck in full velvet walked on the road from the river and just stood there looking at them. The buck blocked the road for about 10 seconds, putting the icing on the scary factor. The deer ran off and they again hightailed it out of the mountain. When they got to a gas station in the Jemez Pueblo to address Chris's cut arm, some native locals were there. The 4 of them were telling them what happened, and one of the older gentlemen looked right at Chris and told him, "You're not supposed to be here in these mountains." That is why he had that experience. I guess he recognized that he was Navajo and not a Pueblo native. Not sure what he meant by that statement, but they left back to Albuquerque, and he has never been back to camp in that mountain ever again. A few weeks after Chris told me the story, he sent me a picture of what a little boy from the Navajo reservation painted and put it on his Christmas card. He drew it after seeing a Sabe next to his home. I attached the image below. The second story is my other friends run cattle up in Jemez. Their family has been running cattle up there for over 100 years. When I first asked Rick, who has the cattle lease, if he had any experience up there on one of his trips, he said no, nothing like that ever happened to him. But the more we talked, and I gave him examples of how you feel and what I have learned from your show, Suddenly, he had lots of examples of his horse just stopping on a trail and starting neighing and started walking backwards, even when he could not see what would be scaring the horse. Hair standing up, and the complete silence many times, either while ranching or hunting. He may have even seen one while looking for the lost horses. While driving along a long stretch of dirt road, he could see out about 300 yards out. He saw something big and dark walking on the side of the dirt road. So he tells his cousin, there's one of the horses. The figure turned to the right into the trees. When they drove up to the area, they stopped, got out, looked for a hoof print, and there were none. They asking each other, you saw the horse, right? I saw something big, but I'm not sure it was a horse, and it didn't leave prints. They just thought they were seeing things. And last year for archery elk season, Rick shot a cow elk at sunset. We left him there in the woods by himself on the logging road, and he went back to camp to get rope, my side-by-side, and a little flatbed trailer. It probably took about an hour to get back to him. When we got there, 4 guys went to deal with the elk at the bottom of the canyon, and I stayed on the top in the logging road with Rick. Then he asked me, hey Adam, what do those things sound like, meaning sabe? I told him they make all kinds of different noises. I asked why. He said when he left, and he was there in the dark and the quiet, he heard what sounded like a loud siren like on an old fire truck. The sound would last about 20 to 30 seconds, so he knew it wasn't a person doing it, and we were about 13 miles away from any paved road. I told him he has had more experience than me. The latest story happened about 2 weeks ago. They got down from the mountain about 11:30 p.m. and were putting the horses away and backing up the horse trailer in the field on Rick's land. The river is about 20 yards away. One of the nephews said, wow, those coyotes are close. Sounds like they're going to attack us. Well, within a few minutes, it didn't sound like coyotes anymore. Now it sounded like little kids talking or playing far away. I couldn't understand or make out the words. Then it changed to women screaming, like she was being torn apart by something. My buddy Paul said, let's get the hell out of here. And Rick said, this is my land and I want to know who's on it and making these noises. So my buddy Paul said, then I'm going to go get my pistol out of the truck. After listening to this screaming for about 5 minutes, with their pistols in their hands, the fear factor was enough. Rick walked to his truck, got in, and closed the door. I guess he had enough, and they all left the area. The next day, Paul called me to ask what I thought it was. He said he thought it was people doing witchcraft or sacrifices down by the river. I asked him, did you see lights, a fire? Told him, you can't even walk down the river with all the willows and bushes and in the complete darkness. I don't think it was a person. I told him it could be a Sasquatch related or something else like it. But he is someone who will not believe until he sees. They are rough and tough cowboys that don't want to admit that there are things they don't understand in those mountains, even if they have spent their whole lives in those mountains. Like you said, Steve, just throw out the subject and see if anyone perks up when you ask about it or when I tell my story. Like you say, Steve, look for the patterns. Everyone has a story. Some just don't know they have one until you put some clarity into their eyes. We need to get down to New Mexico so you can try some real Mexico chili, red or green. Check out our balloon fiesta, biggest in the world in October of every year. You and Sarah would love it. We also have some of the greatest hunting here. We even have exotics from Africa, and you would love it. Thanks for all your hard work and dedication that you give towards this cause. Thank you to you and your family. Take care, and God bless. Oh, P.S. Not too long ago, a young boy and family who lives off the grid, he sent you an email stating his mom gave him permission to email you just one time and that he would have to send you letters in the mail only. He wanted your mailing address to send in more knowledge that his First Nations mother had about the Sabe. Did they ever send anything to you? The story was amazing, and I'd love to hear more. Yeah, thanks for that reminder. I remember that story. And I would imagine it would have sent to my mailing address. I hope I did. I wonder how I could find that email again. I don't even remember. I mean, my God, you know how many emails I've read, you guys? Holy shit. Man, that's a familiar. That was a really interesting experiences going on there too, wasn't it? With that family. I hope he's still listening. I hope he's allowed to email me one more time to give me a reminder, or I'll have to think up try to remember some of the key words that may have been in that email and do a search in my notes, see if I could pull it up. Man, I hope I sent them. But anyways, obviously I haven't received anything in the mail. But I hope it isn't because I didn't give him my mailing address. But anyway, there you go. Appreciate the offer to hunt too. Really, really appreciate that. I'd love to hunt down there. And keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, right? And you're right. You keep talking to people around the hood, around the area, the town, anywhere. You just talk to people with respect. And don't make a joke about it. People, they share. They get it out and they share. It works. It really works. But if you think you're going to bring up the topic of somebody who lives rural or works rural and say it as a joke with your opening delivery, they're going to clam right up, guaranteed. People that have had these experiences didn't ask for it, troubles the shit out of them, and they don't want to be laughed at. That's why they don't talk about it. So if you start talking to someone about this topic and deliver it as it's a funny joke, you just ruined everything. Guaranteed. But anyway, keep digging, my man. Thank you so much for that email. All right. Moving down the list. The long, endless list. This is titled Respect from Belfast. Wow. A friend of mine grew up in Belfast. Crazy place to grow up, man. Hi, Steve. Let me start by saying you have the brassiest of brass balls and are gaining huge respect from many people for shooting straight from the hip, and rightly so. I've never had an experience with Saab, but I felt it necessary to share something. My dumb ass always thought that Bigfoot was a single being that was spotted in various places across North America. But after stumbling onto your channel, I feel that I've received enough education on the subject, and I've got to say that all those emails from so many varied and widespread contributors, that enough is enough. These people in the woods exist. And now we must get down to answering all those obvious and essential questions, such as what the F, and of course, what the F. Seriously, I've never even had an encounter. Not sure I really want one. But the sheer amount of others that have has convinced me of the truth. The purpose of this rant is to let you know that people are awakening, even without experiencing, because of your channel. I'm willing to stand up for the army of truth. Keep up the good work, and thank you for your diligent efforts for the people, knowledge, and truth. Best wishes to you and your family. I'm Francis. I live in Belfast. You're welcome to share that. Francis, appreciate you, man. I appreciate the kind words. And you're right. It is true. It's very true. The people are speaking, and the people are listening to the people now. Thank God. And you're right. You're a free-thinking, free human being. Glad you're here. Super glad. I'm super stoked that your brain's working for itself. That's a good thing. All right. Holy cow, this is a long one. Whew. All right, I'm going in. Going in. Mark this as red. The River Dump Monster. Please watch this. It'll blow your mind. Is the title of this email. Hello, Steve. I've been a fan for a long time now. I must say we are both cut from the same chopping block in so many ways. I enjoy every story and monologue and rant you do. People can't handle the truth anymore, it seems. We live in a different era from what we grew up in, that's for damn sure. Life was a lot more simple back in the day before all this bullshit technology and smartphones and social media. Life was easy back then. Everyone was connected before the rise of technology, and now we're so disconnected, even though we have all this fake-ass shit in the palm of our hands called a smartphone. Everyone seems to hide away and live in a fake-ass life thinking social media is connecting them to everyone and everything, but it's not. Texting sucks, and is a waste of time when you could just push dial instead. Well, enough of my rant. I just had to throw it in there. I don't even want to get started with our corruption at the highest level of government. I could rant for days. Once you're awake, you'll never ever go woke and buy into the bullshit mainstream garbage. I've been wanting to write in for some time now, just haven't been able to muster that up that time, I guess. That's my excuse anyways. But, you know, excuses are like assholes, and everyone has one, and they all stink. Just a little backstory on me. I grew up in a little place called Forks of Salmon. All off-grid, 32 kids in my school from kindergarten through grade 8. It was a mining and logging community until the hippies ruined it. Hence community. Not much of that anymore. Anyways, my mom's side is native, and I grew up with an absolute abusive asshole of a stepdad that drank a lot and did other shitty things. Yep, we're pretty similar. So, I know what evil looks like. I was always outside from dawn till dark with either a fishing pole, a bow, or a .22 in my hand. I never wanted to be home when he was around, so I became very knowledgeable of all my surroundings in the mountains and rivers and lakes. I know every sound of the forest and the animals that live in it. I've been an elk guide for close to 20 years here in North California. I quit guiding a few years ago after guiding my friend Ryan, a police officer, shot the biggest bull of the woods. He died of COVID after he got the jab 2 years after our hunting trip, so I hung up my hat after that. Oh, that's sad to hear, man. Sad to hear. So on to my Bigfoot stories, because I know you're all waiting for that. Back when I was a kid, we would go up to the local dump just a mile and a half up the road from my house and watch the bears. This was back in 86 or 87. I was 9 or 10 at this time. I was with my brother and 3 cousins, and my aunt was driving. We were watching 5 or 6 bears rummaging through the trash one night when the moon was really bright. We didn't have the headlights on in the car, and your eyes adjusted just fine, and you could see really good in the moonlight. We had bears all around us. Walking by the window, you could have rolled down the window and touched one. They were that close. I was sitting shotgun, and one cousin was sitting in the middle, and my aunt was driving, and the 3 younger kids were in the back seat. We were there for an hour or so watching the bears dig around through the trash. It was our entertainment back then. We didn't have TV to program our young minds and become the senseless retards that are walking around today. The bears were all doing their thing when I looked down across the old mining pit and saw this huge effing bear walking across the sand to the dump. We were up above it about 100 yards away looking down at it as at a 45-degree angle. I shouted, "Look at the size of that bear coming toward us." It was absolutely huge. It looked like it was the size of our car. The moon was kind of shining at a quartering angle to it before we lost sight of it at the bottom of the dump. And all of a sudden, all the bears that we were watching instantly ran off in all directions. We thought that was kind of odd and sat there for a little while longer waiting to see this gigantic bear. When all of a sudden there it was standing 25 to 30 feet away, and it was no effing bear. It was an enormous Bigfoot looking right at us. What I remember seeing was its head that didn't really have a neck whatsoever. Shoulders that were almost as wide as our car, and we could see down to a little below its waist. It was about eye level with us, looking right through the window. We all screamed. My aunt started the car, threw it in reverse, and all I can remember was rocks and dirt and dust was flying, and the wheels were screeching when we hit the pavement in reverse. She slammed it in drive and started peeling out down the road like a bat out of hell. We were all shaking and shitting our pants. We didn't say a word for the whole mile and a half home. We pulled in the driveway. My aunt sat there and looked at us kids and said, "I don't know what you all, I want to know what you all saw up there." I think we all said at the same time, "We just saw Bigfoot and he's real." We were white as a ghost. When we walked through the door, Mom and Dad asked us what happened. "You guys look like you saw a ghost." We told them the story and they kind of laughed it off. It was traumatizing to say the least. I had such a hard time going to sleep for months on end. I always thought he was looking through my bedroom window at me. I had to have a curtain put up so I could fall asleep at night. I had to make myself disbelieve what I saw. I had to block it out of my mind for years and years. The year before last, I was hunting deer on opening weekend in the Trinity Alps with my son and my hunting buddy and his son. We decided we'd split up. My friend would go up and over the mountain and camp, and my son and I would go down the ridge a couple miles, and we would hunt into each other and meet up in the middle, thinking we would chase something to the other, vice versa. So I get over the ridge with my son at daylight, and we get to watch a bunch of bull elk and a herd of cows all morning long mingling below us. It was awesome having my son there to witness the bugling and just getting to watch them in their habitat. We ended up seeing a couple of nice bucks, and my son got a dandy 3-pointer. We made a pack out of him, and my son threw him on his back and started hiking out to the top of the ridge to meet up with my friend and his son. They were not there. It was getting late, so we hiked back to the 4-wheeler and made it back to camp late afternoon. We were exhausted and excited, and we still had to skin the buck out. I asked my friend, "What happened to you guys? Why didn't you meet us up on the ridge?" So they proceeded to tell us what happened. They made it up to the top and crested over the ridge, found a rock to get a good vantage point from, and was waiting for it to get light enough to see. They were there not very long when they heard the deepest, longest roar that shook them to their core. It wasn't quite shooting light at this point, and they didn't know what the hell that was. It seemed to be just over the crux of the basin they were sitting in, and they couldn't see what it was. They said it was just a couple hundred yards below them. And not long after it did it again. The loudest guttural roar that lasted 10 to 15 seconds. Scared them so bad they decided to get the hell out of there and proceeded to go back to camp and wait for us. Their day of hunting just got ruined in the worst possible way. We finished skinning the deer and was sitting around the fire talking about the happenings of the day when my friend's son said, "Listen, do you hear that?" We all stopped talking, and holy shit, it was the loudest roar that they heard from the morning, but this time it was down below our camp, and it lasted about 10 to 15 seconds. We all about shit ourselves. It stopped roaring, and we were stunned to say the least. We were all wide-eyed and jaws on the ground. 30 seconds or so go by, and it does it again. We froze up, and no one moved until it stopped roaring. My son ran into the tent and got his deer rifle. My buddy's son jumped in the truck and locked the door. They were all scared shitless. My friend and I sat there in bewilderment and kept drinking our beers. Needless to say, we didn't get a whole lot of sleep that night. The next weekend, we decided to go further down the long ridges to hunt. The weekend before, there were deer tracks and elk running around everywhere. This weekend, there wasn't anything at all. The animals were gone. We hiked about 5 miles down the ridge and finally saw a couple of small bucks running off, scared to all hell. We got off trail a little ways and tried to get a shot, but they were already gone. So, while we were sitting on this rocky outcrop, I noticed this hunter hauling ass down the trail, yelling and talking to himself. I thought it was odd that he'd be going back to the trailhead at 8 in the morning, and he was almost at a slow jog, yelling and making noise and arm flailing. We sat there dumbfounded as to why he was doing what he was doing, when we realized he had an experience with what he had witnessed the weekend prior. Something scared the living shit out of him, and he was out of there. We decided to hike a bit further and headed back to the truck late afternoon. Apparently, when the guy got to his vehicle, he was driving like a maniac down the road and almost ran a friend of ours off the road. I really wish I could have talked to that guy on the trail that day and asked him what he saw or heard that scared him so bad. I have a couple other stories to tell on secondhand accounts, but my email's getting long enough. I've been listening to all these stories and trying to piece together things until I watched the video below that might give a little insight into what's going on. Please watch with an open mind because it blew mine right out of the water. Thanks again, Steve. You're a man of the people and of the world of knowledge that needs to keep getting shared. I'd love to sit around a fire and have some beers and shoot the shit one day. Keep up the great work, man. Cheers, Chris. P.S. I shared some hunting pictures of my son and my buddy's elk he got. That is a giant Roosevelt elk. Okay, man. Appreciate you. I'll check out that video hopefully when I get time. That's a beauty elk. Holy crap. I don't know if you want me to share these pictures or not, but that is a monster. Beautiful animal. Great buck, great pictures, man. Beauty bucks. That's awesome. That's awesome. Sad to hear you're not guiding and hunting. Did you? I don't think you dumped the hunting. Did you just say guiding? But either way, I'll guarantee you your buddy didn't want you to quit doing that. I'll guarantee it. He didn't want you to quit doing that. And it sure sounds like we lived a parallel life, huh? Just different, on different chunks of the dirt. Spread out. Sounds like our story is exactly the same. It's kind of funny, isn't it? Yeah, I'd love to sit down and have a few beers and shoot the shit around a fire too. For sure. Who knows? Maybe one day. Maybe one day. But anyway. Keep talking out loud, man. Man, I'm glad you found this channel. Super glad you found this channel. Super glad you shared what you shared. And I hope you keep sharing with us whatever you hear down the road, all right? And stay in touch. Send me some more shit when you get the chance. For sure. For sure. Now, was there something here I was supposed to listen to? Oh, yeah, I'll see if I'll dig this up a little later on and see what it's about. I haven't a clue. I'm in my notes right now. I got your email copied and pasted in my notes. So there you go. There you go, you guys. Now, that reminds me, I'm going to share this with you guys because this is direct knowledge. Somewhat off topic, but a little on topic with this email. So Sarah's mother. Go-getter, high energy. All she does is work. Works her butt off. Loves working. Works for herself. And sets high goals for herself and crushes them. And when the, how do we word this? I know the AI that's running the algorithms online, they really hunt for the correct words to slap you and shut you off, right? So listen to what I'm throwing down. Try to pick up what I'm putting down. So a couple years ago, when the viruses kicked in, right? And the governments of the world start hammering on the people. And she was full on. She would have wore a mask. She would have wore 3 at a time. She was so engulfed in it and freaking out. And went and got her first needle. And then right away, as soon as I said, you got to take it again, she went and got the next one. And boom, down she went. Down she goes. Down and out. Sick as a dog. Can't do anything during the day without having to go into complete coma, nap time in the middle of the day. And has not stopped getting sick since. Has not been able to not sleep a lot of different times during the day. Hasn't stopped yet. And when she went back, sick, trying to get help, the doctor had to say to her in private, do not accept another one of those needles. Don't do it. So there you go. Now, still today, as in the word from her just a couple days ago, is she is so sick still. She was sick at Christmas while at our place. Her immune system has basically been annihilated. Annihilated. Now, how long has this been going on now? I think over what, a year and a couple years, a year and a half? Her life has been basically destroyed. And that is 100% from that, I don't know, call it a needle? We'll call it a needle, right? There you go. I understand there's a few states who have, there's a few different states apparently this past week who said there will not be any of those needles, period. There's a lot of people out there who are injured, a lot. Sad, it's frustrating. I hope to God I live to see the day the bad people pay, right? Or if I can instigate somehow to make a movement to make the bad people pay. Man, oh man, please. Please, God, show me the way. Show me the way, right? But anyway, there you go. I want to share that with you guys because it's firsthand knowledge to me to share with all of you. Take for what you will or leave it, but there you go. I'm going to come back again, and I'm going to keep making sure that every single frickin' voice gets heard. Everyone. There isn't going to be another person available online who's going to outdo me. I'm not going to stop. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'll be back later. Share my story at howtohunt.com. Get that knowledge to me, and I will get it shared word for word how you deliver it to me. We'll be back shortly.